Japan's island where 5,300 people once lived. Then they all left. Imagine a tiny island in the middle of the sea where thousands of people once lived. Children went to school there. People went to the hospital. Families went shopping. People watched movies in the cinema. And inside those concrete buildings, an entire community lived their everyday lives. But today, almost no one lives there. There are only empty buildings, broken walls, and the sound of waves hitting the island. So what happened? How did an entire island become empty? This place is called Hashima Island, an island near Nagasaki, Japan, also known as Gunkanjima or Battleship Island. But Hashima is not just the story of an abandoned island. Behind it, there is coal mining, Japan's industrial growth, thousands of people, the rise of a busy community, and then the sudden end of an entire town. And today, we are going to discover what really happened to Hashima Island. Hashima was a small, rocky island in the sea near Nagasaki. At first, there was nothing very special about it, but beneath the island, there was something valuable: coal. As Japan began to industrialize, the demand for coal increased, and mining operations started developing on Hashima. Slowly, facilities were built to extract the coal. Then workers arrived, and with the workers came their families. The small, rocky island slowly transformed into an industrial community. Buildings were constructed, seawalls were built, apartment blocks appeared, and even though the island was extremely small, the population continued to grow. From a distance, the huge concrete buildings and seawalls made the island look like a battleship, and that is where its famous nickname came from: Gunkanjima, Battleship Island. But the most interesting part of Hashima's story is what life was actually like there. Imagine Hashima around the year 1960, a tiny island, but a population of around 5,300 people. Yes, 5,300 people living on this small piece of land. And Hashima was not simply a workers' camp. It was a real community. There was a school, a hospital, shops, a cinema, entertainment facilities, and apartment buildings. Children went to school, parents went to work in the mine, and families returned to their homes in the evening. In other words, in the middle of the sea, behind walls of concrete, there was a complete town full of life. Imagine waking up in one of those apartment buildings, walking through a narrow passage and seeing people everywhere, children playing, workers going to their jobs, shops opening, and the sound of the ocean in the background. Hashima was not just a mine, it was home. But the entire community depended on one thing: coal. Hashima's economy was built around coal mining. As the demand for coal increased, Hashima became more important. Mining operations expanded, more workers arrived, more buildings were constructed, and the island became an important part of Japan's industrial growth. But Hashima's future was completely connected to the coal industry. And then Japan's energy industry began to change. During the 1960s, Japan started using more oil. The country's energy system was changing, and coal was slowly becoming less important. This had a major effect on coal mines. Hashima depended heavily on coal mining. So when the coal industry began to decline, the future of Hashima became uncertain. Think about it. Imagine a town where almost everything exists because of one industry. The houses, the school, the shops, the jobs, everything depends on that industry. So what happens when that industry disappears? The buildings can stay, the roads can stay, the school can stay, but why would people stay? And then came 1974. In 1974, the Hashima coal mine officially closed. And when the mine closed, the life of the entire island began to disappear. Workers left, families left, students left, shops closed. The school became silent, and the place that had been filled with thousands of people became almost completely empty. But there is something important to understand. This was not mysterious disappearance. The people did not simply vanish. No supernatural force took them away. The reason was much simpler. The mine had closed. And once the mine closed, people no longer had a reason to live and work on the island. But they left something behind. Their apartments, the school, the hospital, the shops, the industrial buildings, and the memories of thousands of people. Imagine this. Just yesterday, children were sitting inside a classroom. Today, there's no one there. Just yesterday, people were watching movies in the cinema. Today, the seats are empty. Just yesterday, families were living inside the apartments. Today, the rooms are silent. A family left its home and perhaps never came back. A child left their school and their classroom remained behind. A worker left their job and the mine tunnels were closed forever. Hashima did not become a ghost town in one single moment. But in a short period of time, the island became completely silent. And then time began to change everything. Hashima is surrounded by the sea. Salt water, strong winds, rain, and years of exposure slowly damaged the buildings. Concrete walls began to crack. Metal started to rust. Windows broke. Roofs and structures began to deteriorate. And then, nature slowly started taking over. Where children once played, plants began to grow. Where families once lived, empty rooms remained. And the island that had once represented Japan's industrial power slowly became a giant industrial ruin. But Hashima has another important and sensitive chapter in its history. During World War II, under Japan's wartime policies, workers from Korea and other places were brought to Japanese industrial sites. There are historical accounts concerning forced labor and harsh working, conditions connected to the Hashima coal mine. Japan and South Korea have also had disagreements over how this history should be described and remembered. That is why Hashima should not simply be presented as a beautiful abandoned island or a haunted island. Its history is much more complicated. It is a story about industrial progress, but it is also a story about the people who worked there, including people who experienced very difficult conditions. Hashima's story is beautiful in some ways, but also complicated and painful. But there is another name people often use for Hashima: Ghost Island. So, is Hashima actually haunted? Are there really ghosts there? Are strange sounds heard inside the abandoned buildings at night? There is no scientifically verified evidence that Hashima is haunted, so we cannot honestly say that ghosts live there. But maybe Hashima does not need ghosts to feel mysterious. Imagine an island where around 5,300 people once lived, and today almost nobody lives there. Empty corridors, broken windows, abandoned apartments, a silent school, rusting buildings, and all around them, the endless sea. Sometimes, real history can be more mysterious than horror. For decades, Hashima was not open to general visitors, but in 2009, tourists were finally allowed to land on the island. Today, people can visit Hashima through specially arranged tours. However, you cannot freely explore the entire island, and some structures have badly deteriorated. Visitors can only observe the island from designated areas, and perhaps that distance makes Hashima even more mysterious. You are looking at a town where thousands of people once lived, but you can only see their world from the outside. Today, Hashima Island is part of the UNESCO World Heritage Property, Sites of Japan's Meiji Industrial Revolution. It is an important reminder of Japan's industrial history, but time continues to slowly destroy the island. Weather, salt water, and natural deterioration continue to weaken the old buildings, and one day, some of these structures may no longer look the way they do today. That is why Hashima is more than just an abandoned island. It is a time capsule, a place where the remains of an old world are still standing. Once, 5,300 people lived on this island. For some, Hashima was their home. For some, it was their workplace. For some, it was their school. And for others, it was their entire childhood. Then, an industry disappeared, and an entire community disappeared with it. The people left, but their buildings remained. Their apartments remained. Their school remained, their streets remained, and the ocean still surrounds the island from every side. Today, when we look at the silent buildings of Hashima, perhaps the biggest question is not, are there ghosts here? The real question is, how did an entire town that was once full of life become so completely silent? Maybe Hashima teaches us one simple lesson. A city is not made of buildings alone. A city is made of people. And when the people leave, even the strongest concrete buildings can become nothing more than a memory. This was The Untold by Shiza.